All right, hi guys, welcome to our training on mastery paths. If we haven't met yet, I'm Kristen Grindle. I am the OIDC, which is the online instructional design coach for the Mountain View region. And I'm here with Freeman, he's co-hosting with me. And then we also have one of our teachers, Mark Norris, who is the ultimate master of mastery paths. So he might be chiming in every once in a while too. Um, and then there's other OIDCs in the chat as well. So if you have a question, go ahead and throw it in there, and either one of them will ask it, or Freeman will have me, no, they'll answer it, not ask it. And then if they can't or want me to show something, they'll have me do that over here. So one of the things I wanted to show you is this Canvas cohort course. I know we've talked about it a few times. So this is the Mountain View one, but all of the schools have kind of their own setup. So it's based on the high school that is in your feeder pattern. And we all have, it's very, very similar for each one. So you'll see the same menu on the side and the same content in there. The main difference is the name. So I did want to show you that we do have this Mastery Paths resource. Most of our resources in this cohort course have this like 2-panel image of like a super quick tutorial. We tried to simplify the tutorials as much as possible and made these cards. So in normal life, we have actually physical cards of these things, but right now we're in digital life. So you can access on the side panel here all of the crash course cards, we call them, in one big Google Doc. So if you are looking for like quick, easy tutorials on some of the things that you're learning about Canvas, that would be a good place to go check out. And then obviously any of these are going to have the card along with some additional resources that we've kind of curated to as being the most helpful thing, so you're not having to go and dig through resources on the internet. So the easiest way to find a topic would be through the index. If you want to kind of work through, we've made these modules starting with foundations and then kind of getting more complex as you go. So Mastery Paths is in the differentiation one there, but all the topics can be found sorted out by in the index as well. So okay, so let's jump right into it. Mastery paths. So mastery paths are a way to differentiate for your students based on their results on a foundational assignment. So you have this like mastery path assignment, and then what we call conditional content that is assigned based on whatever score they got. So one of the big things with mastery paths is that you want to plan it out before you go. So and this can be, you know, up to you how you do this. I tend to actually like write it out, kind of map it out, draw like a little sketch of what I want. You get 3 categories at most of students, of options for students. So you can kind of think of the roads, what 3 possible paths would you send your kids down depending on the score that they got? And then what assignments would follow in with that. And I'll show you what some of the options are. So it kind of set up, once you have it on paper or in your head, or if you just want to start in the modules, you do have to set up mastery paths in modules to make it work. So if you haven't set up a module before, the easiest thing to do is go to your modules page and hit the add module button, and then you can call it whatever you want. So this is just my example, so I called it mastery paths. And then I use the indentation option. So when you click on this flyout menu over here, increase or decrease the indent. So I use the indenting to kind of show which are the conditional content. So that's these guys down here. And I'm starting with my mastery path assignment, so my awesome quiz. Now you could get more complex with your indenting to help you. You are allowed multiple levels of indenting. So you could even organize this out even more if you wanted to. But the key thing is these assignments need to be made before you set up your mastery paths. Once your students take that assignment, you can't go in and add more stuff or change the assignments. well, you could edit stuff within the assignment, but you can't go in and change what you set up in the mastery paths. So you really want to have this planned out and laid out as much as possible. So when you make a mastery assignment, so this could be a quiz or an assignment. The nice thing about a quiz is those can be auto graded. So the students aren't waiting for you to manually grade something. If you do a quiz with any like free response, then you're gonna have to manually grade it. If you do an assignment, you're gonna have to manually grade it. But you can do mastery paths still in any of those graded assignments, quizzes or assignments. So what you'll do is you'll make your quiz, and you'll make that the way you normally make a quiz. So you'll set up your details, you'll set up your question, as many questions as you want, however you want it to be. And then you'll go to this third tab, which up till now you might have just ignored. And that's where we'll set up our mastery paths. So you can see, like I said, you have 3 areas, 3 different grade ranges that you can now choose a path for your students to go down. Now you are allowed to adjust the numbers here. So let's say I didn't want it to actually be 2.1, I wanted it to be some other number. You can go in and adjust that, and now that will make that range a little bit narrower, or actually wider, and then you can do the same thing here. Now you could also drop it if you wanted this one. I think you can do this. You can make that the 0. That would kind of just eliminate this bottom option as well. So you could, if you only wanted like 2 paths, you could do it that way as well. I'm gonna go back to what it was, or at least close to what it was. Okay. So now to add content to the paths, all you have to do is hit these plus buttons, and your content that is eligible is going to show up right here. So you can use, so the little paper with the pencil is an assignment. The little rocket ship is a quiz. Now, and then there's pages as well. So, oh, I forgot to mention this. Pages aren't defaulted to show in mastery paths. You have to enable them to show in mastery paths. So let me actually go back really fast and I'll show you how to do that. So any quiz, any assignment, any discussion can be assigned as conditional content, but pages, you have to go in and check this box right here, allow in mastery paths, for it to be eligible for a mastery path assignment. I do want to highlight, because I've done this before, if you are not using a page in a mastery path, don't check this box, because no matter if you publish it, if it's in a module, the kids aren't going to be able to see it unless they've gone through a mastery path to get it. So you want to check this box if you want it for a mastery path, but leave it unchecked if you don't. Hopefully that made sense. So pages are the only thing that you do have to like enable them to be used in a mastery path. All right, so let's go back here and set up our paths. So the top one would be like your enrichment option. So for me, I made this enrichment assignment, but you can pick multiple things too. You can pick them at once, or you can add them one at a time. So there's my enrichment assignment. Let's say I also want them to do additional practice, just because I can throw that in there as well. Or let's say I want it to be an either or option. You can actually give students choice here by clicking the little ampersand in the middle and switching it to an or. So that's kind of another really cool thing about mastery paths, is you can give that student choice that we often want to give them, but sometimes don't know how, or struggle with managing that. Now this is going to manage it for you. So you can do the and, or you can also add even more stuff to it. So I can like lump these 2 together. I can move this one over and lump those 2 together, or I can make actually 3 different paths that way. If I want to remove something from a path, I just hit the 3 dots and hit remove, and now it would be gone. So now I can set up, so let's say we'll leave that one that way, and then we will, let's do for the middle of the road people, let's make them do the additional practice, or we'll have them watch the video, I think is what I had, and do the enrichment because they almost got it right. And then for the bottom of the road people, we'll have them watch the video, we'll have them do the remediation assignment and the additional practice. So you can see you can really tailor this and make it whatever you want. Again, on any of these, you could give them choice or not, and set it up. Now, if the students haven't taken it yet and you're like, oh, you know what would be really great? Another page on this, you can definitely go add more pages. Just make sure you add them to your module and then come back in here. It's just once the kids have taken it, you can't go in and alter the paths that they're on. So you want to make sure you always hit the save button when you're done. And then you'll notice that now over here I have this mastery paths breakdown. So you will get this updated as students start to take it, and you'll see who was assigned what over here as you go. So at this point, are there any questions? And then I'm going to show you what it looks like from the student side. Are we good?
The only question that wasn't answered, I think, is whether this increases student engagement.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're giving students choice, like that's a positive thing. I think it helps because you're tailoring the assignment much more than just kind of working towards that like middle of the road or whatever you think is best for the most people. Mark, do you want to chime in on that? Because you use Mastery Paths more than anyone, I think.
Yeah, I'd say it it really increases the amount of activity in it. For me, I was doing without doing this. I teach at grade level math at geometry and algebra 2, and I was estimating about 50% engagement in my class before doing this. And now I have documented that it's between 70 and 80%. The kids want to do this because it determines what they're going to work on. And normally it's the better they do on the practice, the fewer problems they have. And they see that as a, if you will, a carrot type thing. So I get huge increases in activity in the class.
Yeah, so Mark, do you want to talk really quickly about how it drives your instruction, just so they can get a picture of what it looks like and the benefit of it?
Yeah, I see the benefit of the mastery path as a true mastery path. I don't do that. I'm just checking for basic understanding during the class. So I'll teach a class, go over how to do some math problems, give them a little practice on paper, and then they go to the computer. Now, there's two reasons they want to do that. One, like I said, the carrot. If they do well on it, they have fewer problems for their assignment. But two, they get a practice on the computer, and that's why most of them want to do it as a quick practice. Make sure they know how to put in the numbers, because I have to play a few games with how to make a math problem work in Canvas. So in that way, they all seem to want it. When they don't get it or they weren't there for class, they want to go back and do the practice problem. So no, I've had nothing but positives on this that I've had. Did that answer what you wanted me to?
Yeah, I think so. So does anybody else have a specific question? Thank you, Mark, for sharing that.
Kristen.
Yeah.
So I kind of put in the chat, and I think Julie's trying to respond to me. So as I was looking at the mastery paths, I'm thinking two things. I'm putting a structure together that they can choose to follow, or is it that they choose which ones they're going to do, and as a result determines what their score is? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so there doesn't have to be any choice at all. So depending on how you set up your mastery path. So if I didn't have any of these or options chosen, it's not there's no choice. Based on the score that they got on the assignment, this is now their next assignment. So
So there's something before this.
yeah, whatever this quiz is that I've set up,
Okay.
that's determining what path they go down. So there has to be, yeah, so there has to be a starting assignment that then launches them into a path. So what Mark does is he gives them like a baseline, like a quiz, and then based on their score, did they get it? Did they kind of get it? Did they not get it? That then sends them down different routes of practice problems that they're going to get.
Okay, so then I guess I don't understand Mark's comment when he said some of the kids want to do the practice. So where would that come in here? They have to do the practice according to how you set this up.
Yeah, I set it up where well, if they don't do it, I assign the work to them, which is normally if you will, the most problems. But the reason they want to do it is because it gives them a real quick practice on entering into the computer, which sometimes it's a little complicated with math because they don't have an equation editor. So there's different ways I get around that. And most of them want to do it for the practice, actually entering into the computer.
And it does. And so what you're saying, Mark, is that if a student, like they're not there or whatever, they kind of get that bottom path just defaulted to them, right? Like you manually assign that path to them.
Yeah, I sort of stayed away from the true mastery because of all the requirements. We have to let students repeat work, let them redo it and things. So if they're in class, they get to go through it, maybe get the fewer assignments, and then if they're not there, they get the bigger assignment, which is basically the same as doing it. But and again, my setup is a little different because I will have them do what I call practice problems, stuff we had just gone over, see how they understand it. And that leads to a second group of practice problems. And then by just doing sort of a branching diagram type thing, how they do on that second one ends up leading into 3 different possible assignments. So that way, if they're getting it, they don't have to do as many problems. If they're struggling with it, they can do more to get it. And that's the logic behind it.
So Mark, question for you.
Yep.
So are you saying that they're motivated because they know if they show mastery, they'll move through the content faster? Or are you saying that somehow the way it's structured, they're motivated to get into do their work? Am I making a distinction there?
Yes, and the answer is both. One, you'll see my students, they all know when they get the fewer problems, they did good. And there's a bunch of students are literally, I won't say they're really upset, but they seem to be irritated they didn't get the fewer problems. They're trying that hard. The second of all is if I just gave them the assignment and there's, 20 questions on that, and they go through and they miss a couple because they had typos, they pretty much have to go back through and redo all the questions to raise their grade. This way they get to try a few sampling just in case it's how they're entering it is the problem. So my answer would be both those help them motivate it.
Yeah, you definitely want, the only time I've seen it not motivate a student is if your enrichment assignment is something that's harder than your remediation assignment, because then they're going to bomb the initial quiz just to get the easier task afterwards. So what Mark is saying is that reward of having, basically you showed you understood it, so there you don't have to do as much practice afterwards. That's just more like maintenance practice. Motivates them to do well the first time that they take it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a lot. She knows. I really want to get to the point that the top 5 or 10% go to a much fewer problems, but much more difficult problems. But I'm going to have to weigh that between discouraging them. They go, these are too hard. I don't want to do them. So, but right now, like I said, with what I've been doing, it's fine.
And that's a nice reason why you doing something like this, like letting, them choose. They do have less, but they now get a choice in some way. Um, Even that alone can be motivation for students as well. This is also something that you can do if you just want to give students choice on any assignment. So, and you don't want to have them see, um, you know, maybe they're choosing what book that they're going to study, or uh, whatever topic. Like they have there, you have a couple different options or assignments, and now this is a way to kind of flush that out and let Canvas manage it for you, instead of trying to manually go in and say, okay, these students are doing this, these students are doing that. Kind of letting Canvas do the work for you. If there's any other questions, feel free to just ask really quick. Otherwise, I want to show you what it looks like on the student end.
So I'm sorry to hog questions. Just a real quick question, clarification on the enrichment.
Yeah.
So I understood what you said, Kristen, about kind of separating, making sure so you have an option so that they don't feel like they're what's the word you used? Essentially, if you put an enrichment activity out there, what's their motivation for doing that? And in your example, it's because now you don't have to do the practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's still an assignment. It's still something they have to do. It's not like a bonus assignment. So it's just like you're doing this instead of doing that. So um, in terms of, one thing, because then a question usually comes up is, well, how do I do this in the grade book? Well, what I'll tend to do is I'll have, like, I'll put it in just as like a follow-up assignment, or like mastery path follow-up. And then it's the same amount of points for everybody, but how they got those points is different. So maybe 5 of the kids got it from the enrichment assignment, 5 of them got it from the remediation practice, 5 of them got it by doing just the additional practice, whatever it was, or, however, whatever your paths were set up as, you can still put it in as one assignment in Synergy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do it as one assignment. They'll have 3 possible assignments they might get assigned. I normalize them and then let them, I basically a percentage, and then I put it in out of 10, no matter how many questions they have, type thing.
So really quickly, one thing I wanted to show you, I just realized when I went to student view, I skipped this step, is that in your conditional content, you do need to also assign, so you can choose it for the mastery paths, but you do want to go in and change the assign to option to mastery paths. And then that's going to ensure that students who aren't assigned it aren't seeing it. Now, one thing that Mark mentioned is that you can always, so let's say it's assigned to mastery paths, but I decide that a specific student needs to do it too. You can go in and type in a specific student's name right here, and that's the manually assigning it to someone too. So, it's your class. You can always give them whatever work you want them to. So we do need to go in and make sure that each of these assignments was set only for mastery paths. So again, you can do this as you set it up. So when you make the conditional assignment and you do the assign to, you want to just assign it to mastery paths. And then according to Canvas, it works better if you don't put in any dates until after everybody's been assigned it. I'm not sure why, but and this is our last one. So the only thing is, if it was assigned to everyone and the mastery paths, then they're going to see it regardless of what path they were on. So that's what we want to avoid right now. Okay, so let me go over to student view and show you what it looks like on that side. Now remember, you can go into student view on your own class as well. So I highly recommend that you test things out, because that will help you see if things are going wrong. Occasionally there's stuff you can't do in student view, but mastery paths is one thing that you can. So you can see when I go into my page, all I see is that quiz which is that like baseline assignment, and then it says locked until the awesome quiz is graded. So this is where all that conditional content is. They're only going to end up seeing what they get assigned by the results of this. So if I go in and I take it, so the right answer was all of the choices. So this is going to be my top group. So it tells them the results of their quiz. Now they can hit next. And this is where they get that choice. So they can choose option 1, which is the enrichment assignment, and then it has a little preview of it, or the additional practice, which I didn't specify anything there. So that's why you don't see anything at all. And then they choose, they select that or that. Or the other thing they can do, but sometimes this happens. We have to choose here. So I train my kids to just hit the next button because sometimes going back to the module is funky. So let's say I pick the enrichment assignment. Now I can click on it right here and I can do the assignment. Or I can go back to the module and now it should be there. So now my module is set up to, that I already took this quiz. Now I'm doing this enrichment assignment. If I reset student, and let's say I get them all wrong. Now when I hit next, it's not giving me choice because I didn't have any choice set up for them. I just have to now go through each of the assignments that were assigned to me. Or if I go to the module, now I have 3 assignments because I was in that bottom category and I now have to do all of the assignments there. And then the same thing would have happened if I was that middle student. It just would have been the 2 assignments that I had given them for that. So that's what it looks like on the student end. Questions? Any other questions?
Can you show what it looks like with the or option from the student view?
Yeah. Let me just reset it. So when the students have the or option, it gives them the choice. So option 1 is to do this. Option 2 is to do that. They can't actually click on the assignments, but they will be able to see the content that's in it. So you would want, when you set this up, to actually have like your directions for what this is going to be. And this one also should have had 10 points, sorry. And you would have description here, then they'd be able to see that and make their choice based on that. So they'll either select this one or that one, whichever way, and then they can access it right from here now. Now it's turned into a link, or if they go back to the module, it's now the only other content in their module and they can access it from there. So that helps.
There's another question. I don't know if I answered it, but so maybe this will go to Mark. But as far as grading goes, you just grade on completion of the paths, regardless of whichever path they take, right? Is that?
I have some minimum. Basically, if they get a certain percentage, they get full credit. If they get, like below 20%, I don't give anything. Anything from 20 to 60, they get 50%. So I vary it. So they get either full credit or half credit, depending on what their scores are on it. That answer your question?
Yeah, and I think that's something that that's up to you. It's your class, right? So you can set it up however you want. I think for management purposes, though, making sure that all your paths total up to the same amount of points. In that way, if you're grading it within Canvas, you're able to make when you transfer it to Synergy, put it all into one assignment in Synergy as those follow-ups, either adding up the multiple things or like Mark said, doing some kind of rubric with it that you're deciding, hey, if you did this, this is what's going to go in that follow-up grade. If you didn't get it, this is what's going to go in there, and you got to then do the more remediation or whatever. So
yeah, that's the important thing on all this Canvas stuff is get ideas from everyone, but then make it your own. It has a lot of flexibility. Anything I've wanted to do differently than Kristen has, shown me how to do, it's real easy for me to modify and make it my own to fit my classroom. So don't think because it's one way, it has to be that way for everybody. Make it your own.
In all these assignments, you can have whatever point values you want on these. So you can really tailor it to make sure, every path adds up to 10 points or whatever it is you want, but you got to do what makes sense for you and your class. Someone else wanted to chime in? Go ahead.
I have a question. I'm not able to access the chat, and I wanted to kind of piggyback on what Mark said and what you said at the start of the session in terms of each individual teacher creating their own paths. I wanted to know if for a particular subject or area, if there were what I am calling presets. Are there any course presets for mastery assignments? Because I know we, using something like this, we can front load, and doing all the front loading is awesome. But if you're, let's just say, a new teacher and you want to use this as a source of setting up your schedule, there are no mastery presets anywhere like in Commons or something like that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure there are. I'm pretty sure you can get mastery paths from Commons. Does any other OIDC have experience with that?
I can talk. So mastery paths, I know they don't blueprint. I don't think they copy. So I don't think that the mastery path setup would be available in Commons. I've never tested it, but based on my other experiences trying to copy it from course to course or from a blueprint to a course, it doesn't work. So I would assume that it wouldn't work from the Commons either. However, the structure with all the assignments, which is the time consuming part, would be able to be shared. It's just the setup of the mastery path that wouldn't be able to copy in.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it looks like I just kind of did a quick search in, you can pull over like modules that are set up as mastery paths from like Commons, or like Julie was saying, from another teacher. But making sure that you'd still want to make sure that the actual path copied over correctly and that it was set up. Mark, have you transferred stuff from one course to another successfully before? Okay. Well, so did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Mastery paths, it can be one of the trickier things to work with. So it is really great. I would say to definitely make sure that you've practiced it though, before you do something like really big with it. So just to make sure, that you've set it up right. Like I said too, I highly recommend going into student view, taking whatever your mastery path assignment is and making sure it sends you down the right path.
Hey, Kirsten, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm Alfonso. Hey, how do you add students to a specific mastery paths? I lost that part. I don't know.
They automatically get assigned. So if you look now at my mastery path breakdown here, it shows I have one student assigned to this mastery path, and it'll actually list out who's assigned to what path on that baseline assignment. So it's automatically.
How do you assign that student? I didn't get that part.
It's automatically assigned based on the score that they got on this assignment. So if they scored between a 2 and a 3, then they got in this path like a 1.2 and a 2.1. They would go there. If they're at the bottom, they would go automatically into that path. So it's all based on, that's what you have to decide. Okay, what this is, like for me, this awesome quiz, that's their ticket in. That's what's going to determine what path they're on. These indented assignments are the for the different paths and variations. And you can have stuff in multiple paths. That's okay too. So
you answer. Thank you very much.
yeah. And then if you look over here at the reason these ones, so once you assign it to a mastery path, it tells you who gets it. So like this assignment here, the only students who will get that are the ones at the bottom. But because I put these ones in multiple slots, that's why it says multiple here. So if you want to check, you can always click this link here. It's going to take you straight to that mastery path tab in your original assignment, and you can go in again and check. You can adjust these. Maybe you take the practice and you realize, oh, no, this should be a lot higher. Like they need to get 100% on this to get this top path, or you can go in and change that stuff. You just want to do it before your students do it. Because once they've taken it, it won't assign them the mastery path afterwards. You would have to go in and manually put them in different assignments.
So somebody asked if a student rocks an assessment, can you set it up so they don't have to do any more work and then simply move on?
Yes.
Yeah.
You would just not have anything here. You would just
What usually does though is he gives them
some kind of practice.
They
just have less. You could also, some teachers I've seen will add a page here. So I don't have one set up right now, but maybe the page says, hey, you did a really awesome job. Congratulations. Move on to the next module or whatever. I would still put something there just because it's nice to give them some direction, and depending on how you've used it in the past, they might be confused about where to go. But I think it's good to still have something that they do. But yeah, you can just tell them to move along as well.
In English, I typically have some sort of reflection assignment is what I've had in the past, which is at the end of all of them anyway, but they sort of go straight to that if they rock the assignment.
I saw someone comment about the new celebration feature. That is automatically on any assignment that's turned in on time. So it's not something that's necessarily based on a score. It's more celebrating that they turned it in on time.
Kirsten, can you show us what your grading Speedgrader looks like when you have multiple mastery paths, and how you actually transfer your grades into Synergy from that point? Make sense?
So yeah, so it's actually going to just put each of the follow-up assignments in their own category. So you would have to then, because it's one of the options in the filters is by module. So what I would do is I would sort it by my Mastery Paths module. So all I'm seeing are those assignments, and then you can determine the score based on that module's grade, or you can add them up. So when I went in and edited my assignments, notice I made it out of 5 out of 5. Kids who had these had both of those. So, I could add those together to get the 10. I can just put that one in. Or like Mark was saying, he kind of looks at their overall, how did they do on it, and then checks it from there. These ones are grayed out because when I did the practice test, the only one I was assigned was this additional practice. So they can't be a score or anything in there or there. It would just be the original score and then the whatever their assignment was. So if there were more students in here, you would see those gray boxes in different places depending on what the student got. Does that make sense? And then how you put it in a synergy is up to you. I mean, you could put each one in separately and just leave them blank for kids who didn't get them assigned. Or what I do is I do one follow-up assignment grade and I would put in a score based on how they did on those follow-up assignments. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, when you're setting up these grades or the names, if you're doing a mastery path, if you put them with similar names, that they come up together, because when you go into the grades where Christian's looking at, you can look at a lot and see them all together. Because if I have probably 150 of these, if I don't have, I do them numerically so they're right next to each other. I just do a 0.1, 0.2, and a 0.3, whatever the prefix is. And that way they're right next to each other. I can look at them and grade them real quick. I haven't looked at them particularly in Speedgrader, but on that, I believe it comes out a gray box like you see on the grades here. If they weren't assigned it, a dash mark if it is they were assigned but didn't do it, and then a score if they did it.
It looks like it's not letting me go into Speedgrader because this isn't a real course. Oh, so this one did, and it just is showing I haven't submitted it yet. So it would look different when you have more students. So it would Speedgrader would look the same. It just wouldn't, you would only see the submissions of the students who were assigned it. Any other questions? Freeman, have you shared the PD URL yet?
Nope, I'll do it right now. So I'll put that in the chat. You guys should make sure you fill that out in order to get credit. I'll also put up the places where you can find these videos later on.
A previous one, yeah. And then if you have any just general questions right now, we can answer those as well. Or if you still have some mastery path questions, feel free to stick around. If you're good to go, then just fill out that form before you leave. And thank you for being with us today. And hopefully we'll see you another session. I think, Julie, you have one right after this, right? What's yours on? Is she still here? I don't know.
I have a general question. It has nothing to do
with
mastery path. When are we going to be able to color code our modules in Canvas?
Never.
Okay.
So I think it was Britton. Are you here? Is he here? I don't know who's here. One of our OIDCs reached out and they basically said they can't do that because, well, one, not everybody can see color, so it might give some kids advantages over others. Okay. What they recommended was you can actually put emojis in your modules. And,
really?
So that's something here I can show you. In my course, one thing that I do too is just, you can close these little, I call them drawers. I don't know what they're actually called, but that's nice. I teach the kids to do that too. So then it jumps right to the one that we're at. But I've been putting little emojis in at the start of them or with that. But then like, this is my instructions for the week. So it's not actually an assignment. So every week I've been just putting like fun little emojis for me to see that that's different, but also maybe for them to see. So you could use different symbols to represent different things, either in your module or within a module to see different assignment parts.
Okay, that helps.
So yeah, so for those, you just have to like copy and paste emoji into it from somewhere else. So
Okay, thank you.
How do you put the emojis in there?
the emojis,
Yeah.
you have to copy and paste them from another location. This is the one that Britton, I think actually the Canvas people shared with him. I can share in the chat. It's like load, it's taking forever to load right now. I don't know why it's not going to the website though. So whenever this loads, there's just a giant list of emojis, and I don't know why my internet is deciding not to do anything right now. And you can just highlight one, copy and paste it over.
Cool. Thank you.
But my internet just decided it doesn't like me, I guess. This is the calendar this week for other things. So Julie's is next on announcements if you want to jump over there. Otherwise, tomorrow we'll be doing Canvas basics, so importing, setting up navigation, dashboard, homepage stuff. So a pretty introductory class to Canvas. And Julie will be doing embedding videos at 10. So